Hi everyone, my name is Shannon, and today I'm here with the actress Salma Hayek, who's here to promote her new movie Frida, which is based on the artist Frida Kahlo. Hi Salma, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Just so happy to be sharing this project with all of you.
How did you prepare for this role?
I read books, I watched documentaries. She was such an amazing woman and painter, and she definitely followed a non traditional path to success. So I wanted to make sure that I embodied that as best as I could. I wanted my portrayal of her to do her justice. I mean, she was very complex, she had many difficulties to overcome in her life, and I wanted this performance to be, a gift to her and her family. I wanted to be able to put my all into it because she was such an amazing woman. I felt like if I wasn't going to go into this with 100% intensity and enthusiasm, that it was just completely pointless of a project.
You're right, she was an amazing artist. What do you think inspired her work?
It's amazing because she's one of few people who were so open about what inspired her. And for Frida, it really was physical and emotional pain. It was the pain that drove her work. She actually started painting after an accident that left her temporarily paralyzed. And for someone who was used to being active and whose dad encouraged her to play sports, and she was, up and about all day, she was just sitting around with nothing to do. And then she put all of that pent up emotion and energy and, the lost opportunities to be active and be outside into painting and into making these masterpieces. And once she overcame that hurdle of being, immobile and she could walk again, she fell into this loving relationship with Diego, and that inspired her work, both positively and negatively. She just always used anything that was going on in her life to really just bring out the best in her potential, honestly, as an artist.
Speaking of Diego, how would you describe their relationship?
Based on the research I've done, it was just complicated. They loved each other, but they had a funny way of showing it. They both had multiple affairs throughout the relationship. They called each other's names. They were open in having multiple lovers, in the public eye, but they were so fueled by artistic passion that, their love was just a minor piece to everything that made up their relationship. In fact, many times during the relationship, they were separated, just due to how toxic it was for each of them, but they always came back together. They had a divorce and they remarried. I suppose they truly were in love, but in a very Frida Diego kind of way. It's not your traditional love. This was actually one of the biggest challenges in my role, was trying to create all of these emotions with another actor when Frida and Diego were so passionate in their ups and downs.
That is one rough relationship. Frida seemed to have many of those. She became close with Diego's ex-wife Lupe, but they weren't too fond of each other at first. Why do you think they became such close friends?
I think they were jealous of each other. I think they both loved Diego and his charisma and the way he made women feel like art. Frida was very unhappy that after she married Diego, his ex wife was still around and she even lived in the apartment upstairs. As any woman would, I think Frida felt threatened. She didn't want to be just another girl that Diego was going to throw around and not care about, or hurt, or cheat on. Um, but then at the same time, she knew that the ex wife would be an expert on Diego. So I think they just kind of had a mutual understanding. At a certain point, I think Frida just decided that Lupe would make a better ally than an enemy. She had already gone through the process of being married to Diego. She knew his manipulative tendencies. And in my opinion, Frida was smart to want her on her side, to have someone with an expertise in her own husband. She helped make Frida more confident in her own actions regarding Diego. Instead of hating her, she kind of used her as a mentor, which is very unusual in a normal relationship, but pretty typical for Frida and Diego.
Frida was known to be a free spirit. How would you describe her? What was it like to play her?
Well, Frida was definitely a wild child from the moment she was born. Um, she, was different from all the other girls. She didn't want to conform to the traditional ways or the ways things should be for girls. She wanted to express herself physically, sexually, emotionally, creatively. And she knew, you can't really do those things confined in the old ways or traditional ways of how things are supposed to be. So she had a marginal personality as well. She blurred the lines of gender and sexuality throughout her life, insisting to dress in a tuxedo in their family photo. Playing her was just honestly a thrill. It was so fun and so interesting and so complex, but definitely worth it. I had to try to embody all of her energy and just let it leak all over the screen, which was very, very hard. But I think, excuse me, I think I did the best that I could to allow people to have some kind of like insight into her and who she really was and just in her like wild life.
Absolutely. I think you've done just that. You've done such a great job portraying an icon. Thank you for your time and hope to see you again soon. I'll be back momentarily with our next guest. Welcome back. I'm here with another actress from the movie Frida. This is Valeria Galano, and she plays Diego's ex-wife, Lupe. How are you, Valeria? Thank you for coming.
Hi, thank you for having me.
This movie is based on the life of Frida Kahlo, and a big part of it is her relationship with Diego. Diego is known to have many lovers, and one of them was his ex-wife, Lupe. What can you tell us about her?
Well, Lupe, she's not really well known in history since everyone was focusing on Diego and Frida. But before Frida, Lupe was Diego's model. She would model some artwork for him and he would paint her. So, as it goes, Diego and Lupe created a sexual relationship, which then turned into a marriage.
Interesting. So, do you know if she was alright with Diego having affairs with his other models?
Oh, of course not. She would be furious with him whenever he'd sleep around. I mean, they did have 2 kids after all. But when I was filming, I had to harness emotion like, why me? Why did he decide to marry me if he's going to go and cheat? And I think that grasping and trying to harness this emotion was the most helpful for preparing in this role. And I wanted to make the feelings toward both Frida and Diego in this film authentic.
She made an exception with Frida, but not first. Can you tell us how their relationship developed throughout the movie?
At first, Lupe was jealous with Diego's new lover. There was animosity between them at first from both ends, and my character reiterates that Diego's magic is that he makes you feel like art, assuming that Frida has become infatuated with him already. Ironically, upon meeting my character, Frida and Diego had maintained a professional relationship, and arguably that line is what pushes Frida to fall in love with him. Later in the film, Lupe did live in the same building as Frida and Diego, so at that point, there had to be some sort of civility if they wanted to all live happily. My character eventually became friends with Frida, and together they helped each other and they bonded over their love for Diego. Lupe especially helped Frida learn Diego's ways.
Diego managed to capture your heart and Frida's. What made him so alluring?
I guess there's just energy around him that drew people to him. Both women could appreciate his art. Lupe was a poet and worked as a model for him, and Frida, of course, was a fellow painter, so they both appreciated the artistic side of Diego. And I think that both Frida and Lupe had bonded over art in the process of creating something beautiful, which ultimately was Diego's charm. And he had a way of making everything in life seem beautiful.
You said they were both painters. Do you think they inspired each other?
Diego was very inspired by his political views. He heavily believed in the communist movement. Frida's work was more focused on her internal pain and frustrations that she had in her life, especially her accident that she had, her miscarriages, and of course her relationship with Diego. He had caused a lot of pain for her, and this reflected in her artwork.
Well, it's all we have time for today, Valeria. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.